let's start with Heisman, and me and JP can start because we have the same Heisman prediction. It's a championship finalist, Cade Klubnik. He's got the weapons and 2 sophomore wide receivers in TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got Antonio Williams, a top 200, I think a top 50 prospect. I don't know why I started. He's up there as far as the PFF big board goes. I'm going with Cade Klubnik. He put up very good numbers last year, 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Is that right?
Something like that.
And nearly 4,000 yards. He was up in the upper 3,000. So a very good year last year. I expect him to have another similar year this year. Yeah, I've got Cade Klubnik. JP, you want to say anything about him?
I think the numbers should be better than they even were last year, especially another year with their offensive coordinator and another year in the system, and Cade's just another year older. I think a huge thing for them and why I have Cade winning the Heisman is because Clemson, I think, is going undefeated this year, and that's a large part of arguments for Heisman trophies is how good your team is. We've seen that, and so I got Cade as well.
Yeah, there's also a thing, too, of the biggest question for that team is the run game and the running back room. So they may pass a little more than we've seen other Clemson teams do if the running game, doesn't get sorted out. It's not like that's the biggest question, but it's not like it's a disaster or anything like that. It's the question. I have Jeremiah Smith winning it.
Real quick, talking about the Clemson, how often have we seen a team go undefeated and then someone from a team that didn't go undefeated win the Heisman?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I guess the year Michigan went undefeated, they had Aiden Hutchinson on that team, right? Was that Aiden Hutchinson? And he did not win it. So it does happen. So going undefeated.
Defensive end.
Yes, this is true. I guess the better question would be how often do you have a quarterback? Well, J.J. McCarthy did not win it as an undefeated quarterback. Go ahead. You can. Sorry, go.
You're good. I have Jeremiah Smith winning it. I think he has a great chance to win it as a non-QB. As good of a chance as anyone that's not a QB has to win it. I also went into the spreadsheet third and saw y'all both had Cade and said I'm not going 3 for 3 on Cade. As much as I love Cade, I think he's going to have a great season. Freshman year, he had 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns as a receiver.
That's crazy.
And can still just get better. I think he's going to be an even more of a focal point of the offense this year. They lost their running backs. They're going to have to find something for Julian Sayin to rely on. That's like the best security blanket any new QB can ever have is Jeremiah Smith. So I think he's going to put up monster numbers. Team success does matter for the Heisman. I think they're going to have another great season. I have them winning the Big Ten again. So I think that's going to be there as well. And I just feel like every once in a while they're almost like, yeah, let's bound together as the voters and give it to a non-QB because we like this guy a lot. And I think he's going to have the numbers and the hype and the love to get it done as a non-QB. So I'm going Jeremiah Smith.
JP, you want to go Patrick Manley real quick since you're the only person who filled that out?
Yeah, give me Bo Gardner.
All right, great pick. Moving on. Do you have anything else you want to say about him?
No.
Cool. Let's move on to some of our superlatives. First head coach to be fired. I'll lead off with Hugh Freeze at Auburn. We said in our Auburn preview, I am selling on Jackson Arnold, the stuff I've heard coming out of camp. I've heard bad things, and in my opinion, if you hear bad things coming out of training camps and fall camps or preseason or whatever, things have to be really bad because all you usually hear are the highlights and the good things. And so for something bad to be reported and for something bad to be trickling out of practices, it has to be really bad in my opinion. So I'm selling on Jackson Arnold. I'm predicting Auburn to have another year, 6-6, maybe 7-5, 5-7, somewhere in there, and Hugh Freeze gets the boot because Auburn fans are tired of being average to below average.
Fair. Would you like to give yours now, JP?
Same thing, almost, except it's been bad for a long time.
Yeah.
Sam Pittman.
Yeah.
I just don't think Arkansas season is going to go well. They don't have anything outside of Taylor Green. Although I do like their wide receiver transfer, Schubert.
Omega Blake.
Omega Blake. Yes, that was his
Good
name.
pull.
But Sam Pittman's the fiery for me.
Sure. I went out of the SEC. I went Brent Pry at Virginia Tech. He's not been good there for them past couple years. I feel like they've kind of fallen by the wayside in this new era of college football, but that was a team that or a program that put really good teams out on the field consistently in the 2010s and stuff like that. And so I think they're ready to make a change there, and I don't think they're going to be good this year, and so I think they can move on that pretty quick, and he'll be out the door there and they'll look for someone else. So
Cool.
sorry, Brent Pry, but
Team that should make the playoffs but will not. I think it's interesting. One of y'all had Notre Dame in your playoffs, right?
JP did.
Okay, so you have them making the playoffs, but you think they won't.
I think there's a chance
Okay.
that I won't, and that's why I talked about it earlier. I think the out-of-conference games, well, they're all out-of-conference,
Yeah.
but those games are tough, and they could lose 2 of them, and when they get to 2 losses, I don't know what the argument is there, because the 2 losses might look bad unless, like, if Miami had won the ACC championship, but then
Or USC becomes a 10-win Big Ten team.
You need USC or Texas A&M to be in playoff conversation, or even Boise. But losing to Boise, I think, looks worse. No, even if Boise was a top 4 seed somehow.
It's
again.
got the group of 5
Yeah.
stigma on
But
it. So
if you win that game, you need them to be in the playoff.
If
as
they're
a
11-1,
a booster.
they're in the playoff. But at 10-2, I think you could make arguments for 9-3 teams in the Big Ten or SEC.
sure.
And so that would be my pick as a team that should make it but won't. Because for me, should is like plus 200 and under odds for FanDuel, and Notre Dame fits that category of making the playoff.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, I would have picked someone like, I don't know, Florida.
Yeah, it's a really tough thing to pick. I'm in the same boat of like, since they're not in a conference. If they end up on the cut line, I think they're going to be the one that ends up getting left out, because I think it's a pretty easy cop-out answer for the committee to be like, well, they're not in a conference, so we're just going to move them out. And so if they lose 2 of those games, like you said, they may be in dangerous waters. I didn't have them in my playoff, so.
Yeah. I went with LSU. I think LSU should make it because they have Garrett Nussmeier coming back, and then they brought in a fantastic transfer class. They've got loads of talent, running back room. Like, everything about that team is talented, but the schedule plays out kind of rough for them. I could pull it up. I should have had it up so I could talk about it. I just don't see them. I see them getting to like 3 losses, and I don't see them being a 3-loss SEC team. They go to Clemson, they play Florida, they go to Ole Miss, play South Carolina, play A&M, go to Alabama, and go to Oklahoma. That is a lot, and I see them getting 3 losses out of there, and I don't see them being a 3-loss SEC team that makes it. I don't really know that I see a 3-loss team from either conference making it unless the Big 12 and ACC truly implode beyond that first and maybe second team. So that's why I have LSU. They should make the playoffs, but won't.
Yeah,
Let's flip it. Teams that shouldn't make the playoffs, but will.
I can go first.
Do it.
I think Miami does have a really good team, and like they're the quality of team that could make the playoffs, and not saying they shouldn't, but I just look at that conference schedule and it's kind of like, all right, they can very well make it and really not put together the most like impressive season, or it won't be necessarily the most impressive resume. If you split those non-conference games against Florida and Notre Dame, you're going to be favored, I'd imagine, in all of your conference games, and then even if you go lose to Clemson in the conference championship game, that puts you at 11-2, and we've seen that they don't really knock you too much for losing conference championship games. So I think they'd find their way in without maybe really having done anything too overt or too clear to earn it. But they're just going to find themselves there because that schedule is pretty simple. So I went Miami. It's another tough one to pick just because, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows who's going to be good? Who knows who's not? Maybe their schedule turns out to be great. But
I went Nebraska for the same reason. You said Miami had, like 2 tough games on that schedule? It was like 2 out of conference.
2
Notre
out
Dame.
of conference. It's Notre Dame and Florida.
Yeah.
Outside of that, like Jack said, they would be favored in every single one of their conference games, except the argument could only be made at SMU. And I still think they would be favored in that game because of the talent profile. That's reflected in the JP poll, which is pretty accurate when you compare it to Vegas spreads as well. That's why he does it, because he wants to make money off of it. But Miami, yeah, if they don't make the ACC championship, my God,
it's a bad look
season
for Mario and them, yeah.
Yeah. I picked Nebraska for the same reason. I see them getting to like 10, maybe 11 wins. Their hardest games are Michigan at home, USC at home, and at Penn State. So there's a chance that Nebraska loses at Penn State, and then home field advantage, you win against Michigan and USC. Now you're 11-1 with wins over Cincinnati at a neutral field, Akron, Houston Christian, Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern, UCLA, and then Iowa at home. It's just like, other than those 2 or 3 games, their schedule is very weak, in my opinion. and they play in the Big Ten, so Iowa could be a good team with a good defense, but they're not going to be a great team. So that's why I've got Nebraska getting to 10 wins and sneaking in, but not being there yet as far as other playoff teams. Nebraska is talented. Matt Rule it's the year 3 of Matt Rule, so they're going to win 10 games. Didn't even talk about that earlier. But they're still not on the same level, in my opinion, as other playoff teams, but I think that the lack of losses is going to get them in.
Yeah, and it feels really disrespectful to be like, this team shouldn't make it, but they will. Because at the end of the day, if you do go 11-2 or something like that, like Miami, like, I'm not going to be here like, wow, they shouldn't have made it. That's like, like, they're not a good team. Like, someone else got robbed. But it's just like, if someone did make it that has an easier path, maybe slips in.
Yeah, and I also think of it as far as like profile of the actual team itself, not just resume. Is like, would I expect this team to hang with other playoff teams? And I would not expect Nebraska to hang with Georgia's or Alabama's or Ohio State's, maybe an Arizona State, but sure. That's kind of where I went with that. JP?
Yeah, for me it's South Carolina, and I don't want to beat a dead horse by making the same take again, but this is interchangeable between Oklahoma, Florida, and I wouldn't put LSU in this because they are in that conversation of making the playoffs for sure this year. But I don't see a world where one of those 3 teams, Carolina, Oklahoma, Florida, don't make the playoff because of the quarterback play they have. But for me, it's South Carolina. I think they've got the games that can really, really build their resume, that even at 9-3, you can make a great case for them to be in the playoff. Because to get to 9-3, they would have had to beat some really good teams in the SEC. So for me, they're the playoff team that would not be picked to make it, but will.
Sure. Moving on to most improved team, I'll kick it off again. I have Washington. They didn't just have a terrible year record-wise last year. They went 7-6, I believe. 7-6, 6-7. I think it was 7-6.
Yeah, they won the bowl game.
Yeah, they did win the bowl
Tony
game.
the Tiger Sun Bowl,
which is a huge bowl win. I mean, you don't get an opportunity to play in the Tony the Tiger Bowl game very often, so you have to take advantage of that. So even if they end up going like, I don't know, 8-4, 9-3, that's not a huge record jump, but I think the team quality is going to be vastly improved. The O-line and D-line were downright terrible last year, and I think year 2 under Jed Fish, he actually has a chance to bring some of his guys in. Like, he was just so behind the 8 ball last year. Year 1, just with how DeBoer left and everything went down and how old that team was. He returned 2 starters. And that with Damon Williams being the full-time starter this year. Sure, even if they, like I said, they don't make the playoffs or something like that, I think team quality is going to take a massive jump up. And they're actually going to be scary to play. They're not going to do something like losing the Apple Cup in a way they shouldn't, stuff like that. I think they'll be much, much better this year.
I've got, what are we doing? Teams most improved? I've got 2 teams, and they're in the exact same vein of teams that could double their winning, the number of wins they had last year. It is 2 teams from the same state, Southern Miss and Mississippi State. Southern Miss won 1 game last year. Mississippi State won 2. Southern Miss, I would bet every amount of money I've ever owned on them doubling their win total and getting to 2 wins this year with a new head coach. Mississippi State, I would not take that same bet. I do think they will get there, but I would not put money on it. That would be the over. The win total is 3.5, so they'd hit the over barely, but I would not put any money on that yet. I think both those teams are going to improve. Southern Miss brought in head coach and the portal class from Marshall, and I've talked about this for the last 3 months, like off and on, like every episode. And then Mississippi State brings in some bigger defensive linemen, upgrades there, some wide receivers to replace some losses, and then 2 quarterbacks, 1 out of the transfer portal, and then a freshman who probably won't start. But I think Mississippi State got better just about everywhere except for maybe wide receiver, and even there with the losses we had, like with Craver and Coleman, like I think we did the best we could to kind of fill those holes. So I think Mississippi State and Southern Miss will both be very improved from last year.
For me, it's Oklahoma. They were a 7-6 football team last year. I have them going 9-3 this year, but I think the improvement is just from an eye test thing. They were unwatchable for the last half of the season because of how bad they were offensively. Let me pull it up real quick again. The numbers for Jackson Arnold and their win over Alabama in the game where Jalen Milroe was not great whatsoever. Jackson Arnold in that game threw the ball 11 times, 9 completions for 68 yards, and he ran it 25 times for 131 yards. And yes, they beat Alabama, and that kind of made it watchable, but they were just putrid offensively, and I expect them to be much improved offensively with John Mateer and Jay Knott, the transfer from California. I just think it's going to be a really good offense. They bring in the offensive coordinator from Washington State who has coached John Mateer last year, and so I expect the offense to hit the ground running. Mateer's doesn't have to learn a new system. They only win 2 more games than they did last year. Now, they could win a bowl game and win 3. But eye test-wise, they're going to be a much better watch this year. And so, for me, they're my most improved team.
Similar to me in Washington, I like the pick. We can move on to most regressed team or team to regress the most. Most regressed team feels like it's bad English. I don't actually know if it is, but it feels so clunky.
I couldn't think of the proper word because, like, most improved.
Prime regression candidates. I'm just going to put it that way.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I have Ole Miss. They were so talented last year, and they lost a ton. And especially defensively, I don't expect them to repeat that level of performance this next year.
They were a top 5 defense last year?
They were by a lot of metrics, and they just lost a ton there. And they did use the portal well to get some pieces back in. Sunter and Perkins is another guy that he's coming back. But I just think there's no way that they repeat that defensive dominance, that even if their offense keeps humming like it has kind of always under Lane Kiffin, I think the overall team is going to take a step back. They may still win. I mean, they only won 9 games last year, right? So, it may be a thing of they win about that many games. But similar with Washington, where I expect them to get better even if the win total doesn't change, I think they're going to take a drop-off in talent and skill and performance. So,
yeah, I've got 2 teams. Marshall, they just lost so much in the portal, losing the head coach to Southern Miss. And then the P4 team I have, Indiana. They won 11 games last year. I could see them winning only 8 or 9 this year, depending on how close games play out against teams that I would say they're pretty even with, like Illinois and Iowa. And then I got them losing to Oregon and Penn State, so there's a chance that they could lose. I've got them losing 2 and up to 4 games. And I think that after last year, the energy is there, and so, dropping 3 games with what, an easy out-of-conference schedule is going to be pretty underwhelming. So I've got Indiana taking a step back after last year.
Ditto.
Oh, yeah, you had the same. I forgot you had the same team as me. That's easy.
We're an Indiana hating pod, apparently.
Our last segment, shout out Tucker for this one. He's the only person who responded to my tweet asking for
Thanks, Tucker.
Thoughts. Coaches, so I don't remember exactly what he said, but it's basically G5 head coaches or P4 coordinators who will be a P4 head coach next year. I'll go ahead and start. I've got John Summerall at Tulane. In his last 3 years coaching, he was at Tulane last year, and then the 2 years before that, he was at Troy. He won 12 games in 2022 at Troy, 11 in 2023, and then last year at Tulane he won 9, went 9-5 last year, and then this year there's a possibility that they could sneak into that G5 playoff spot. I have him specifically going to Kentucky because I could see a world where if John Summerall in this year, maybe Tulane only wins 8 games, then it may not happen. But if John Summerall can get to 10 or 11 wins, then Kentucky moves on from Stoops and brings in Summerall, who's a Kentucky graduate, alumni, and I think that they could use that to try and kind of reignite the program. So I've got Summerall making the jump after a good year this year and going back home to Kentucky.
I have Jeff Traylor at UTSA's head coach. I expect them to have a really good year this year. Contend for the American Conference, make that title game, maybe win it. And he's a guy that's gotten buzz before to make the jump to the Power 4. Now, they've not been as good the past couple years, so that's cooled off a little bit. I don't think he's crazy eager to make the jump previously when teams have come calling, just because I think he knows the grass isn't always greener. He's got a pretty good gig there. But I think if he puts together a really good year and some of the jobs that are going to come open, and I expect to come open, I think this could be the time he finally gets lured away and enticed into taking a Power 4 gig. I like him. I think he'd be a good hire, not necessarily a great hire. But some teams can't afford to try and make a great hire. They just need to make a good hire. So that's who I have.
JP, you don't have anyone in the spreadsheet?
No,
you want to throw a name out there?
No, I got one. It's just not in the spreadsheet. I got Clay Helton, head coach at GATA, Georgia Southern. if you don't recall, he was the head coach at USC for 6 years before being fired in 2021, very early on in the season. And then he came and coached at Georgia Southern. He's led Georgia Southern to a bowl game 3 straight years in a row. They were 8-4 last year in the regular season, losing in the bowl game. I think they're going to be really good this year. I have them winning the Sun Belt. And I think because of that, he's in contention to not jump up into like the SEC or Big Ten, but the ACC or Big 12.
Sure.
I think is completely a spot for him. He is not a guy who hasn't coached up there. He coached at USC. He had 2 productive seasons. He won a Rose Bowl at USC in 2016, and then they followed it up with an 11-3 year in 2017, also in a big bowl game, the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
Losing that. So has experience coaching at the Power 5, Power 4 level, and he's been successful at Georgia Southern, a place that it does not have a rich history of success at the collegiate football level. And so I think he's in line with a really, really productive season this year for Georgia Southern. The biggest thing for me is like the players speak so well of him outwardly, publicly, about him and what he's doing at Georgia Southern right now, both people that are in the program right now and also people that have graduated and left the team. And I think that's a huge thing. I think he's building a really good program there, and that is coming from a firsthand source, boots on the ground, both a student there, but also a studier of the
Sure.
Georgia Southern football team. So
Sure,
Clay
sure.
Helton's the guy for me.
Bet. I like that pick.